Hi guys, welcome to our 30-minute roll and release session. I'm really excited to offer this today. This is basically an introduction to rolling and how you can incorporate rolling, or how I incorporate rolling into yoga. So I have a couple of specific rolling tools or balls that I use. They're called yoga tune-up balls. And my favorite are these ones. So there's two of them. These come in a couple different sizes, but they come in this little tote. And what you have the ability to do with them in here is to use them at the same time. So you can just release the toggle and have some space between them. Or you can take one out and use it on its own. These have more of a grip to them, and they are solid. So instead of using, which is fine, I mean, if you have like a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball, certainly go ahead and use that now. But just the benefit to these tune-up balls is the ability to create a bit of adhesion with the skin, and also the fact that they're not going to crack or break or anything like that. So they're going to last a really long time. I do have these if anybody really enjoys the session and thinks that the way that I've used these would be beneficial, then like it's inexpensive. This set is $20. So I can even send them to you if you need to. Okay, so what are we doing here? So rolling targets the fascia, and fascia is something that's really trendy right now. Not trendy because it's going to come and go. It's trendy because of technology and new studies and research that is finding the connection between our fascia and the stability of our joints and the movement of our muscles and all these different things that we've been focused on for a long time. So fascia runs it runs all over our body, but you can think of it as like the connective layer underneath the skin. So it includes things like fat and blood supply, and all kinds of things like that. But fascia also runs all through our muscles, and it runs through and around our organs. And what we do know about fascia is it wants to be hydrated. In fact, if you looked under a microscope at fascia, it looks like water dripping down a spider web. So dehydration is a big culprit for why fascia doesn't sort of move and slide as easily as it should. And knowing that about fascia also makes us understand more why it's sort of newer when you look back at how over time bodies have been studied. They were dehydrated, and now they're able to do more research and look at things on more of a fresh body and see how that translates head to toe. So the other thing that's important to know is that fascia works on four sort of main meridians or lines, okay? So I'm going to show those to you quickly, and today we're just going to focus on one, and what I think is not only probably the safest for us to do from home, but also really interesting. So the first line I'm going to show you is called the spiral line. So if you think of this band as being a piece of fascia, it's exactly sort of like what fascia is as it runs through our body. So it's one long connection. And the spiral line of fascia starts on the bottom of the foot, so it runs into the instep. Okay? It would come up and attach to the outside of my hip, and then switch gears and come across body like this. Hopefully you guys can see that. So it explains a lot why people think of hockey players, think of golfers, have this overuse and common tightness. When our fascia pulls across this spiral line, it's pulling us from one shoulder across to the opposite hip. So let's just say, as a theory, in theory, you could have issues with both the left hip and the right shoulder at the same time because of this line of fascia. Another line of fascia is the front line. Quickly show you that. It runs over the top of the foot, comes all the way up the shin, front of the leg, front of the body. Pretty self-explanatory. Same with the lateral line, runs up the side, okay, up and underneath, one connection. So today we're going to do some rolling for our back line, some roll and release for our back line. The back line runs underneath the bottom of the foot, so I'm going to stand on the band to simulate that. It runs all the way up the back side, and where it actually connects is very interesting. It comes all the way up and over and connects towards the front across the eyebrows. So tension, headaches, things like that. We're knowing and learning more now how connection down the back line of fascia and all the way down to the bottoms of the feet can influence things like that. So I would suggest, in addition to, of course, deep tissue massage, chiropractic, yoga, this is just another way that you can help to release and get circulation and things going through the body. If we go back for a second to any one of those lines, I want you to consider what would be happening now that you know it's one, or it wants to be one fluid line. What would happen if you had, say, a surgery or an injury that caused a lot of scar tissue in a certain part of the body? So what we're knowing and understanding, as an example, the front line, as it comes up the body, if you were to have abdominal surgery, it will affect the connection of the fascia. And I know a lot of people who have had C-sections and different things like that are starting to get more and more into some of the fascia release types of massage that's being offering to help loosen up and get some circulation in the scar tissue. Okay, so let's get started. That's enough chit chat. Very passionate about my fascia. I could go on for quite a long time, but again, I just want to treat this as sort of an introduction. So we're going to use, if you have, I know some of you guys have been to my workshops before, so you guys have the yoga tune-up balls. If you don't, just use, like I say, a lacrosse ball or a tennis ball. Okay, and before we get started, let's just set it down beside us. We're going to do just a little series of stretches. We're going to come back and finish the exact same way that we start, so you can kind of have a gauge as to whether or not you've gotten a little bit of success through this session. So we're going to take our feet about hip width apart, reach arms up overhead, and then just fold forward, just touching down to the floor. Or hanging heavy. I mean, if you can't touch, let's just let our bodies hang in sort of a rag doll. Just notice the back line of fascia. So that's what we're focusing on. Think about the bottoms of the feet. Feel that connection or that tug up into the calves and the back of the knees. Check in with how you're feeling through the hamstrings and up into the glutes. Tightness through your low back. All the way up into that mid-back or shoulder blade region. Bring some awareness to the neck, back of the head, and the sensation you're getting now all the way up into the forehead and that third eye space, so right between the eyebrows. Let's all bend our knees. We're just going to roll and stack our bodies all the way up to the top. Good. Coming down onto our knees here just for a second, and then sitting onto our bums. So bring your left heel in and keep your right foot forward, just planting your foot, holding on to the shin, sitting up nice and tall if you can. We're going to come into a little spinal twist. We'll keep the left hand to the shin and just reach the right hand behind you, taking a little look over towards the right side of your room. Again, there's so many different points through the body that we can reference, but just try to think about all the connection on the back side. So in this case, if you're feeling anything up into the glutes Work your way up through the low back, up through the right side of your shoulders, right side of your head. Coming back to the front, switch sides, so right heel in, keep your left foot forward. Holding onto the shin, and then taking left hand behind you, just gazing over to the left side, sitting tall here. Any little bits of body awareness that you can muster up are helpful and relevant. Not only are you looking to notice a difference, but also just so that you can bring out energy, bring awareness to the specific section of the body that we're targeting today, that being the back. So we're going to stand here. If you have some balance issues, certainly just hold on to a wall or a chair. We're going to take the ball underneath the left foot. I'll always start by rolling the feet, and if I can give you any tips, that would be one of the main ones. A lot of times releasing the bottom of the feet, think of how the release or how that translates or flows up the body. So lots of times you'll find sort of a tender or a crunchy spot. We don't want to be in pain, and that's sort of a misconception that's happened with rolling and rolling becoming more popular. We've all seen people on like a foam roller and they're just like grinding. They're just like irritating and pushing as hard as they can. And that's really kind of counter productive. What we want to do through rolling is just fire and bring some attention, like literally inside of the body. So the connection from the bottom of the foot right now to the brain, and sort of all of the signals that we're getting from our nerves and blood flow that's being attracted to the area. It's a way to have a little more control, especially over spots that you find are too difficult or painful to stretch. Rolling can just target and bring sort of those same types of benefits to that specific spot without having to torque or contortion your body into some strange yoga pose. Okay, so if you put your heel down, there's something on the bottom of the foot called the transverse arch. So sort of underneath the ball of the foot, you'll find it be able to roll side to side here, and you may be able to look down. I roll quite a bit, so my toes are pretty chill right now, but some people's toes will really start to atrophy and move and kind of involuntarily react as you go over each spot. Okay, let's switch sides here. Other foot. So we're gonna work our way up the back. If you're somebody who spends a lot of time on your feet, the foot and ankle quick fix that I did, this is a good option too to throw in a little 5-minute or a 10-minute focus on the feet and the ankle, just to, again, just get some circulation, a little self-massage. So let's talk for a second about pain. Okay, so without getting too technical about it, we have to remember that we sort of live in a world right now where it's really easy to limit pain or to numb pain. And what pain is the way that our body provides feedback to our brain. So when we're rolling, or when we're doing a yoga practice, I always kind of recommend you find in your body like a 5 out of 10 tolerance, and that's kind of a good rule of thumb to know that you're doing something, you're bringing some good connection to that spot of the body, but you're not going to push it too far. Put your heel down, we'll go over that transverse arch here. But it's important also on the other side to get yourself to that 5, because we need to find sort of our range or our limit, in my opinion, so that we can send feedback to the brain, so that we can, you know, with that feedback, bring circulation and bring, you know, all types of things that help us heal. So make sure you're finding that 5 out of 10 as well as not going beyond it, if that makes sense. Okay, so bottoms of the feet, I want you to take a second and just lift and spread your toes. See if you feel like you can kind of stretch your foot just with the power of your mind. Reach all the way overhead again, and then let's fold forward. See how you feel here, if that's helped you. Release up through the hamstrings. Tight fascia is like an energy block. Some people will find more flexibility as they take their forward fold after rolling their feet. And then again, when you're ready, just bring yourself all the way back up here. Good. Okay, guys, we're going to come down onto our bums. So I'm going to put both balls into the little sleeve that I've got. You could achieve this at home by putting 2 tennis balls in like a thin sock or something like that. Just tie the end of it. There's ways that you certainly can simulate this same thing at home. So we're going to focus on the backs of the ankles, the calves. So we're going to take just the left leg out and bring your hands back. So you can make this as active as you want. You certainly could lift your bum up. Roll your body forward and back. So the meaty part of the calf for a lot of people, I would suggest, is pretty, it's kind of a feel-good spot. Not generally a lot of tightness or soreness there. As you make your way up higher in the calf and find that sort of insertion point of the knee, you start to feel a little more tender. You can turn your toes open here, roll up the outside. And there's also a technique called pinning. So if you find a tender spot, I've got one myself here, just below my knee, a little more towards the outside. I'm going to turn my toes open, hold that part of my body just over the ball, and then I'm going to sort of strip side to side. I'm going to pin that ball down with my leg and just take little movements side to side. So this is going cross fiber or across the muscle. I'll tell you too that the first time I was ever introduced to rolling, I felt when I was done just like I had just had a massage. So you do release a lot of toxins, just as you do when you have a deep tissue massage, and so important to drink lots of water and do stuff like that as well. Okay, let's switch sides. You could spend, as I'm sure you guys are aware, or have picked up, you could spend longer on this. I'm trying to keep these sessions to a good length where I feel like people can retain some information, but it's also not too much of a commitment for you. You can make this active if you want to. You can lift your bum. I find on this leg I've actually got the same spot, a little more towards the outside, just below the knee. That's pretty tender, so I'm going to turn my toes out, and just sort of strip that muscle side to side. So the fascia runs not only around the muscles, but through the muscles. So if you think of what I said at the beginning, where fascia wants to be lubricated so that it's like slides and moves. If we have any spot of adhesion, even in a muscle, it can cause that spot to stick. So that's why stripping side to side, maybe even just pinning and holding on a tender spot for a few breaths, could be what your body needs to sort of send the correct response. Okay, we're going to move on. As much as this feels good for me, it's a very new sore spot. Taking up running again, and I'm feeling that. Okay. Next one is always an interesting or a favorite. We're actually going to skip over the hamstrings for the purpose of this class. I will quickly have you know that a good idea, and you can even do this like self-massage style, is to go around from the inside, working your way around the back of the legs. So I'm literally taking the ball just with my hand and running it down and across. Okay, there are ways that we can roll out the hamstring similar to what we just did on the lower leg. Coming to the IT band along the outside, you could do something like this to go up and down that section. Okay, I'm going to move on and just fast forward to the glutes. And I'm first going to show you the glutes laying down, and then I'm going to show you also how we would do this standing. So I'm just going to use one ball here, okay? Lifting up my bum and placing the ball just sort of above the glutes. So if you feel where your tailbone is, sort of come across from there. I'm going to place it just to the inside of my spine, in this case the right side of the spine, and I'm just going to go side to side, focusing only on the right side. Takes a little practice sometimes, so just stay with it. This can be a really tight spot too for a lot of people. So if you start by the side of the spine, just work your way range of motion wise as far out towards the hip as you can, and then coming back in. You could also pin here. So I'm pinned underneath the right glute. I'm going to extend that leg and just hang out here, but keep my left foot planted just for some support. So I may decide to lay here for a moment and do tiny little movements or vibrations if you find sort of a tender spot. If you are like me and have found a juicy little area, then you certainly can bring it back to the pranayama or the yoga breathing, kind of trying to surrender with the power of your breath, just to release all those tight connections that are over top of the site of the ball. Whenever you're ready, we'll just switch sides here, so roll over to the other side. Again, think of tailbone region coming just up from there. You'll know it if you feel it. And then we're just going to work side to side across that top part of the glute. So if you want to, you can extend the left leg. I found a tender spot on this side, interestingly enough, more towards the outside, so I'm going to turn my toe out just to get a little bit better angle. Keep my right foot planted for support. Just keep in mind this channel we're trying to open all the way up the back fascia line. So bottoms of the feet working up through the calves, the backs of the knees, up into the hamstrings and glutes. Then we'll get up into sort of the upper back and the neck. Okay, guys. Awesome. All right, so I would like to show you just quickly how you could do the glutes standing up as well. If you think about how gravity affects us, it's sort of causing us to be heavy down and over top. You could go wide, kind of football player, put the ball right in that same spot that I was talking of, and do this on the wall. Okay, so you certainly could modify that way. Ooh, baby. And get into it from there. Okay, so we're all going to stand. We're actually going to use the wall for this next variation. And we're going to not go along the spine. I want you to always think of avoiding the spine. We're going to work on one side or the other, and we're not going to cross over the spine at all. So just really keep things isolated from one side to the other. So where I'm going to work on is sort of underneath the chicken wing, under the shoulder blade. So starting with the ball on one side of the spine, and then just like we did with the glutes, we're going to move it away, possibly, oops, so just leaning back, coming underneath, working side to side here. Arms are unimportant. I just find the angle of my shoulder. If I move my arm up, it'll change the sensation. So as you feel around here, it might sort of lead you to another spot. And again, if you have some like tight, more knotted up or real tense pockets in your back, you could certainly just pin and lean here. Hang out for a while. Another option too is to, when you pin and sort of hang out here, you can just keep the body stationary and move the arms around, and that might provide just a gentle change of pressure or angle on the area that you are targeting. So other side, taking the ball again underneath the wing, so underneath the shoulder blade, okay, avoiding the bony vertebrae of the spine, and just moving side to side. I feel like I have two different sides to my body here. One side seems to be bearing more tension than the other. So again, just go with your gut. You know, what you want to avoid is any sort of severe nerve type pain. And that is why I chose the back line to lead you through today. It's pretty safe in that sense. I would just tell you, never roll, even if you see somebody else do it, please never roll the front of your neck or throat or into sort of this clavicle collarbone region. You can do some self-massage or things like that, but think of this part of your body as like the 401 of nerves and blood supply, not worth the risk. Also, if you're somebody who has sciatic nerve issues, and that's why I avoided today the real meaty part of the glutes, real center of the butt cheek, you could have some issues there. There's also some really good ones that we could do for the glutes, but you guys understand I'm trying to do this, keep it accessible for everybody, right? Okay, guys, let's move on. So we're going to move on to our last one for today, and that is to tackle the neck. Okay, couple of different spots. So I might get down into more of the shoulders, like upper back, upper shoulder area, or I might hang out just up here at these occipital bones, which tie in right underneath the neck. So you could do this and see how it feels for you. I used to prefer to do this in the sleeve, but as of late, I feel pretty good doing this with just one ball. So we're gonna lay down flat on the back, okay? Take the ball just underneath those sort of occipital bones and just hold there. So there's really not a right or a wrong here. I wouldn't suggest when you're doing the neck to move much. It's more so about nestling the ball into that little pocket and just holding here. Wherever that feels okay for you. You can extend your legs if you want to. So for me right now, the ball has sort of nestled. I tried to start with it up higher and it sort of ran down my neck. And there it's staying now. If you're elevated and your head is lifted, take your arms up beside you and just relax as you're here. Remember, this is about releasing tension and pressure points, and so even just the act of pinning and holding here is going to draw some good circulation and energy into that specific area. If the ball is more underneath and under your neck, and you kind of surrender your head back, then notice how that translates into tension through the face and through the head. And so for me right now, sort of along the hairline and the eyebrows, it gives me a lot of kind of tightness as if I have a headache. So I would probably just stay here for a while if I had the time and just breathe and try to relax all these muscles here. Okay, kind of forget about where you're holding the ball and focus on just letting go of the tension that you have a little bit more control over. And then finally, if we think about the rhomboids, so those are the muscles of the shoulders. Our rhomboids kind of run across the upper back or across the shoulders. There's these little rhomboid muscles up here, sort of a triangle. It connects the shoulder, ties up into the neck. So there's some areas there that you might find are pretty tense. If you lift yourself up and take the ball just underneath of the shoulders, let your arms be heavy and be a little active here. So lift up, oh boy. Woo, baby. Again, avoid the spine. I'm working just on one side. And I'm just going to lay here, holding my bum up. I mean, you could drop your bum down, but you can make this active if you want to. These rhomboids are another place you can tackle against the wall, okay? Moving the arm maybe around, a little cracking on my part. I'm gonna come up and show this on the wall as well. So where I'm at is right here. If you could reach up and over, I'm placing the ball into this little kind of pocket right underneath, I guess, of the line of the shoulders. Okay? So, reaching it in there. And then I can move around from here. Whew. So normally I would move around on the floor. I don't know, apparently I need to do this a little more because that wasn't feeling very good for me to be down there. So again, 5 out of 10. If you're feeling more like an 8 like I was, lift up and move the ball over. Again, try to just avoid, rule of thumb, avoid rolling over the spine. Oh, this is the spot. I think I need a massage. I found a knot. Okay, so anyways, guys, nice. So that's just sort of an introduction that's working on that back line of fascia and some ways that you can roll out that back line. Let's take our feet hip width apart here again. Reach up overhead. Exhale as you fold. And just relax. And in the power or the connection of your mind, track where that back line of fascia is. I showed you, runs underneath the bottoms of the feet, up the calves, back sides of your knees, hamstrings, glutes, flanking your spine as it comes up both sides of your back. It's going to come all the way up the top of the head and connect to the eyebrows. Take one more breath. Good. All the way back up here to the top, and then let's sit down. Bring your left heel in again, keep your right foot forward, just take a little twist. Sitting tall, sitting square with the pelvis. Other side. And release. Good job, everybody. So I would love to do a little series, session of videos that focuses on all 4 lines, just in their own video series. So back line, lateral line, front line, and spiral line of the body. Keep that in mind. I'll send you guys information on that towards the end of the month. But if rolling is something that you feel you want to incorporate, make it your own. The other thing that I will say is when you're practicing this in future, the least amount of clothing you can have on, probably the best, because there is a level of adhesion that really helps, especially when we do those techniques like pinning and stripping. It helps if you can get some adhesion to just, go deeper into the fascia and get a little more release. Let me know if anybody's interested in these yoga tune-up balls. Like I say, they're inexpensive. They're like 20 bucks for the set of 2. And I hope you guys have just an awesome day. Happy rolling.